My name's David Caldwell, and with almost 2 decades of experience in the Portland metro area real estate market and a passion for data-driven insights, I'm here to bring you the latest trends, advice, and stories from the world of real estate. Whether you're buying, selling, or just love staying informed about the market, this podcast is your one-stop source for expert insights and personal perspectives. So let's dive in and ask the all-important question: how's the Portland real estate market? We're back. My name's David Caldwell. I'm here with Krista Britton. I'm in an office. She's in another random part of her home. And we're talking about the Portland housing market. Specifically, we're going to be talking about what's happened year to date in the Portland metro area. And we're going to review some numbers for through June. So the first half of the year, 2024, answer some big questions on what's going on with the average sales price. Is the market healthy? Is the market sick? Kind of all things, what's happening with the data. So if you're thinking about buying or selling real estate, hopefully this will help you make informed decisions on the market and not just an emotional decision on the market.
Sounds good. Let's number it up.
Let's number it up. So let's talk about what I think is most important, what we get asked the most, which is, David or Krista, how's the market? When we hear that, what we think people are actually asking is, what's going on with my home's equity? What's happening with home values? When we compare 2024 to 2023 through June, the average sales price has increased 2% from $595,700 to $607,800. If we look at median sales price, it's increased 2.3% from $550,000 to $542,000. So that's positive. In spite of a 7% interest rate environment, we have seen home price appreciation. But there is something behind the numbers that I want to point out. One of the metrics that we look at is, what happened January versus January? What happened February versus February? What happened March versus March? Were values up? Were values down? As we know, last year, we saw the average sales price finalize at $598,000, which was 2% lower than the year before. When we look at the first 6 months of the year, 2023, we had 1 year where the average sales price was lower than the same month the year before. We had 5 months where the average sales price was more expensive than the year before in the first half of the year. In the second half of the year, that flip-flopped, where there were 5 months that were lower than the same price the year before, and there was 1 month where the average sales price grew. So we saw really the depreciation of the market happen in the second half of the year. The big question is, will that happen this year? And we'll come back to this question when we start talking about what's happening with active listings and pending sales. Because if we do see depreciation, obviously we know what's going to happen in the second half of the year this year. We'll talk about why that might end up being the case. Any comments on average sales price, Krista?
No, I think it's interesting because you're right. The first thing people come to is like, oh, is my house worth less? Like that's everyone's first question is, because everyone wants to protect their equity. And a lot of people are waiting for this huge crash. And I think people are always surprised when I'm like, values are still there. People still have value. And everyone just always seems very surprised by that.
I was talking to a client today, past client. I've done multiple transactions with him. Haven't talked to him in years. He's a banker. And he sends me this text message, and he's like, is it crazy if I buy this house? Like, am I crazy to do it? And we talked about it. And one of the things we were talking about is like the direction of the market. And I said, look, if you think about this real estate cycle that we're in, where people are waiting for values to decline, where the market's been more challenging, it's been going on for 2 years, basically. And what happened? In 2023, values went down 2%. Well, the first half of 2024 gave those values back. So we're essentially back in line with 2022 home prices, with a lot of pessimism in the market, with a lot of challenges in the market. And again, that goes to the fact that real estate is a very resilient asset class. We don't have people losing their homes. And I think the biggest thing that creates that is people fiercely protect their equity. Before they give up a 3% or 4% interest rate, which most of America has, and before they give up $50,000 in equity, people delay their plans. Mm-hmm. They wait for the health of the market to come back. Now, I will note that if you're someone who's watching this and you live in Lake Oswego, the market's performing different than Beaverton. Mm-hmm. If you're selling a home in Beaverton for $600,000 or less, the market's performing different than if you're selling a house for $800,000 or more. So depending where you are at, the market performs differently, obviously, based on the amount of people that are able to participate in a certain price point. So if you have questions about the Portland housing market, where things are happening, just let us know. We're happy to give you a precise value on your own specific home.
Yes, that's very important because right now we're doing the general Portland metro area as a whole. But if you want that deep dive into your specific area, that's something we're more than happy to do.
So let's talk about what's going on with new listings. And I'll start by visiting our website, HillshireRealtyGroup.com. Today, active on the market, there's 5,241 homes. And if memory serves me correctly, that's going to be the highest number of homes active on the market on any given day that we've ever reported on any of our content. So that's going to be important when we go to pending sales. But when we look at year to date, what has happened year to date with active listings? We've had 16,336 new listings, which is an increase of 3.7% over last year. We still have a historically low number of homes coming to the market, the second lowest in the last 5-year period. But we are starting to see people that maybe failed to sell their home last year come back to the market this year. New listings actually were down from June of 2023, which is interesting. And they were actually down from May of 2024. So it'll be interesting to see, is that a summer trend? People are going off and vacationing, and we're going to see new listings decline in the second half of the year, maybe as we get closer to the presidential election, people putting things off? Or is this just kind of an outlier month? And we won't be able to probably see what that is until probably 60 days from now, 90 days from now. But if you are a home buyer shopping, there are a lot more options in the market than there are people buying. If you look at the number of active listings that were available at any point in time, in June of last month, there were 5,494, which is the highest number in well more than 36 months. Definitely, in the last 2 years. So let's just talk about active listings and what that looks like for options if you're a buyer, Krista.
So with active listings for buyers, they have a little bit more options, right? It's interesting because when you look at the numbers, there's all these active listings, but then when you talk to buyers that are looking for something very specific, that's their big complaint is there's not enough active listings. There's not enough choices. And it's not necessarily there's not enough. There's just not maybe enough of what people are looking for. So I think buyers are getting a little bit frustrated with this, seeing a lot with the lack of new listings come to the market. I mean, they are down, right, as of last month, but we did just see, I don't know, thinking of some specific clients in mind, some more just hit the market. So I'm wondering if last month was just a fluke or if people are worried that right now is not a good time to list for whatever reason. I think people are scared that their homes don't have the same value, right? So for buyers out there, there are more to look at. And we see, I think, a lot more cross shopping, as you've talked about. Right. So it makes when you're pricing your home even more important because, for instance, people might be looking between Wilsonville and Sherwood or Tiger Tualatin, right? Not just one area. So I'm seeing a lot more cross market shopping with these buyers.
Yeah. I mean, I think historically people would price homes based on just comps in a specific neighborhood, which you obviously have to take into consideration. You have to take into consideration a larger area today because I'll just I'll just point to where we are with pending sales last month. Last month, there were 2,217 pending sales. But we just talked about 5,200 homes on the market today. So there's more than 2 homes on the market for every buyer. And when we get into certain price points, there might be 10 homes, 12 homes for every buyer. But I want to go back to this question about like people having a hard time finding things. Amenities at a certain price point. Probably when you're looking at a more affordable price point, the market's more crowded. You're more likely to see multiple offer situations. You're most likely not going to get the condition you want. And the higher you go in price, where the buyers are more rare, you're more likely to find the things that you want.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Different price points are going to have different options for buyers, 100%.
The more affordable homes have the biggest segment of the market going after them. First-time home buyers are bidding on the same properties investors and downsizers are bidding on. But a lot of the homes that downsizers are selling, they're relying on someone selling their kind of starter home to move up. And there aren't as many of those people right now because we haven't seen some of the wage growth we want. If you look at the entire marketplace as a percentage, between $400,000 and $500,000, that's almost 19% of the sales. When you look between $500,000 and $600,000, that's almost 20% of the sales. So 39% of the market is transacting between the $400,000 and $600,000 price band. Now let's just compare that to people looking between $1 million and $1.1 million. It's 2.5% of the market. Between $900,000 and $1 million, it's 3.5% of the market. And we're talking about a small number of transactions. Closed sales last month, 2,112. So in that $900,000 to $1 million price point, 3.5% of the sales, that's 73 sales. Out of 5,200 homes on the market right now, if all things were the same, only 73 people bought in that price point. If you're a buyer looking in that price point, there are options, most likely for you. If you're a seller, you need to look at that as this is a little bit more challenging time for me. So let's talk about pending sales. That's my favorite thing to look at. Why do I like looking at pending sales? To me, that shows the health of the marketplace, the number of people who are able to participate in the housing market. I believe that speaks to the health of the housing market. In June of last month, we had 2,217 pending sales, which was a 2.4% decrease from June of 2023 and a 6.2% decrease from May of 2024. Year to date, we've had 11,650 pending sales, which is a 1.2% decrease from last year. Now, here's something I like to point out to people. We live in a metro area of more than 1 million people. And we've had less than 12,000 people transact halfway through the year. It's unlikely that we'll average even 2,000 pending sales a month this year because we know what happens when we get into October, November, December with pending sales. Unless by some miracle we have an interest rate with a 5 in front of it, we're probably going to duplicate last year. So to your point, Krista, maybe some people aren't listing their homes on the market because people are really starting to recognize the challenges of the market. Last year, 30,000 homes come for sale, 21,000 sell. Year to date, 16,000 homes have listed for sale, 11,650 have gone pending. That's actually not like that crazy of a gap when you think about it. It's not the most healthy market either.
Do you think anything regarding the upcoming elections has anything to do with people maybe waiting to list?
Historically, when you look in election years, sales volume generally has declined a little bit. Now, I've had a tendency to think this year that people probably care less about the election, and it's more about what's going on with interest rates and what's going on with replacement housing. I could be totally wrong, but when you look historically around election times, it is a slower time in the housing market. historically.
I think it'll be interesting too, because historically, right, interest rates generally dip a bit before the election. So that's going to be interesting to see if they do dip, if people jump, what's going to happen there if they do dip. Don't have a crystal ball, and the last few years have been very interesting. So who knows if we'll be following that trend.
Yeah. Well, there's always this talk of, when is the Fed going to cut rates? When is the Fed going to cut rates? And lots of people have pontificated to when that's going to happen. And the market's betting on this percentage or this many economists think this is going to happen. The reality is people have just been wrong over and over and over and over. And until we see that happen, until we start seeing interest rates come down, we should just expect to have an economy like this. Because like you said, we don't have a crystal ball and predictions are really difficult. One of the ways that I try to help my clients and feel like I am a good educator on looking at the data with my clients is history often repeats itself if the market conditions are similar. We don't know when the market conditions are going to change. What do we know though? When they change, when interest rates go down, it will benefit sellers because more people will be able to finance more expensive homes. It'll benefit buyers because your payment will be more affordable. More people are likely to enter the market if that happens. But if you're looking at participating in the housing market today, in the next 60 days, in the next 90 days, it's highly likely you're going to have a high 6% interest rate or a low 7% interest rate. And we know what has happened in that marketplace. On average, there have been over 3,000 homes for sale. Right now, we're in the time of the year where there's more than 4,000. This year, it's looking like it's going to be more than 5,000. And you're going to average having less than 2,500 pending sales in the market. So depending on what price band you're looking in and how special the product is, the home you're looking at, you could have lots of negotiation power or you could have none. And as more people come into the marketplace, we have an undersupply of homes being built in the Portland metro area, and it's so expensive to build a home. The opportunity to negotiate diminishes with a lower mortgage payment. So let's talk about closed sales. Year to date, there have been 10,386 closed sales, which is a 0.6% increase. Off camera, Krista and I were talking about why that is. It's carryover from last year. People that started building new construction maybe or had long escrows that carried into this year. So it's up marginally. But again, I think it's crazy to think that less than 11,000 home sales, over 1 million people in the metro area. That's not a lot of participation in the market. If you're a current home seller and you're listed for sale longer, that is one of the reasons. We have to expect days on market to extend a little bit. I still believe many homeowners are taking their homes off the market prematurely. I think a lot of people are exiting the market too quickly. Comments on closed sales, Krista?
No, I do think you're right with people are giving up, I think, too fast. People still have, how quickly the sales were going during COVID and things like that, and are forgetting that it's normal, that there needs to be price adjustments, that the market will tell. And sometimes homes are just unique and you need to find that right buyer. But you can't sell what you don't list, right? So the minute you take it off, you're just really reducing your chances. So.
Yeah. So are we in a buyer's market? Are we in a seller's market? This is just an interesting one that I want to bring in here. Historically, people go, oh, if you're under 6 months, if you're under 3 months, depending on who you're talking to, you're in a seller's market. If you're in this gap, you're in a neutral market. If you're in this gap, you're in a buyer's market. In a buyer's market, we're like really far away from months of inventory wise. We have 2.6 months of inventory. If no new homes came to the market, that's the speed in which all homes sell. But are we in a buyer's market or are we in a seller's market? We should define that by appreciation or depreciation. I would say 2023, we were in a buyer's market because on average, the average home seller sold their home for less money than the same time the year before. So far in 2024, the average seller has sold their home for more money than the same time the year before. Will that keep pace going into the second half of the year is the question. But I would suggest that today, because of that, because of home price appreciation, because even when we look at the last 12 months, the average sales price is up 0.9%. Less than 1% might seem insignificant. Lots of sellers have been pissed off at me because they had to reduce their price by 1%, $8,000 on an $800,000 house. I'm the worst person ever, right? People get upset by that, but that's the case. So I would say today, as an average, we actually are in a seller's market, where the same time last year we were in a buyer's market, which goes back to the whole thing you talked to earlier about people waiting for the market to fall. In the last 25 years of 30 years in the Portland housing market, we've seen home price appreciation. Comments?
That's it. I'm like taking in what you're saying. So that's interesting to think that this year's more of a seller's market. And I do obviously think it depends on the price point, right? And the area and the home you're selling, things like that. But yeah, what do you think comparing like resale homes to like new construction right now also? Because we're seeing a lot more new construction come on with regards to, and then for the resale people. So I know a lot of resale people feel like they're competing with the new construction, right?
They are, and here's the thing. People will buy a new car for 20% more money than a used car because it's new. And people will do the same with housing. And we're lucky that usually the premium is not much higher, 20% higher. Mm-hmm. But people will pay a premium for a new house over an old one, even when it's on a smaller lot. Yeah. The argument always is my lot's nicer, my neighborhood's more mature. Rains in Oregon so much, people go to the park. The yard size is less of a big, huge money catcher than people think. It's why property on 10 acres doesn't sell for $50 million. It sells for $2 million or $3 million, right? That land is very valuable, but not as valuable as one thinks. Not more valuable than a new furnace, new roof, etc. One thing I do think with new construction this year, what we've seen in our office is builders giving more incentives to buyers. And we have seen sellers adjust the price down occasionally in subdivisions this year, where in the last, let's go back to 2022, you were getting no concessions. And if you wanted to buy that house, the next house was more expensive. Now, depending on if you're working with a local builder or a national builder, there could be other incentives that come into play as well when a real estate builder, a professional home seller, also has a mortgage company. According to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the new construction market is a lot healthier and moving a lot faster than the resale market because of those mortgage incentives. You don't have to look hard to find them if you're looking at new construction. So yeah, I continue to think that's an opportunity for home buyers in the market and can be significant competition if you're in the resale market as a home seller, depending on what you're selling, obviously.
All right.
So let's leave it there.
Yeah.
Right? Because we've already gone for 23 minutes. So if you have any questions about what's going on in the Portland housing market as it pertains to your goals, remember, real estate is local. What's that mean? My subdivision, my street, my elementary school area, the community I live in, my zip code, right? Where people are cross-shopping. Values cannot be found in an algorithm. We also send people algorithmic values that oftentimes are incorrect. So if you want to know the true value of your home produced by like a real person, me or Krista, email us at hello@hillshirerealtygroup.com. If you have questions about buying, you can do the same, and we'll see you next time. taking forever to stop. It's like taking forever to stop.